Well, thanks for coming today. This is Things They Usually Don't Teach You. I'm Bill Merrell, the host. We have a lot of things to do today, and hopefully we can get through them without boring you to death. Let's look at I'm a history teacher, so you have to understand that I'm going to be looking at history. Henrietta Wood's court case. An African-American woman born around 1818, Henrietta Wood was born into slavery in the American South. In 1844, the wife of her master, Jane Sherrod, took Wood to Ohio, a free state. 4 years later, Sherrod registered Wood as a free woman. She supported herself by taking a job in housekeeping in Cincinnati. In 1853, Wood was abducted by a slave hunter, Zebulon Ward, who re-enslaved her again until slavery was abolished by the Emancipation Proclamation. Wood sued Ward in 1869 for lost wages and damages, and she won. A federal judge awarded her $2,500, more than $60,000 in today's dollars, which is the largest amount ever awarded in the United States as restitution for slavery. Before she became a famous actress in classic sitcoms like Maude and the Golden Girls, B. Arthur served as a truck driver in the United States Marine Corps Women's Reserve during World War II. She respectively earned an honorable discharge and regarded as one hell of a Marine. The most forceful roller coaster in the world is the Tower of Terror at Gold Reef City in Johannesburg, South Africa. At the bottom of the ride, huge drop, people experience a G-force of 6.3 Gs, twice the G-force of a space shuttle launch. The War of Jenkins' Ear, 1739 to 1748. The Brits were itching for a fight with Spain in 1739, so they reached back 8 years to an incident in which a captain of a British merchant ship, a man called Robert Jenkins, reported a bizarre incident to the British military. Jenkins claimed that his ship, the Rebecca, was stopped by the Spanish Coast Guard in April 1731. While searching the ship, Jenkins exchanged words with the Spaniards. One of the Coast Guard officers took out his saber and sliced off one of Jenkins' ears. At first, Jenkins got a shrug when he reported the ear-slicing incident. But when the British Parliament needed an excuse to go to war with Spain, they suddenly acted outraged about the fate of Jenkins' ear. What is the smallest planet in our solar system? Mars, Venus, Mercury, Pluto. The answer is Mercury. Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system. It is the first planet from the Sun and is only slightly larger than Earth's moon. The defenestration of Prague. Did you know that we have a word in the English language that means the act of throwing someone out of a window with the intent to cause death? Well, we do. That super specific word is defenestration. One act of defenestration was the impetus to war. It was the event known as the defenestration of Prague, and it took place on May 13th, 1618. On this day, Protestant nobles tossed 2 Catholic officials out of a window at the Prague castle. Although the Protestants intended to kill the Catholics, their plan was failed when the unfortunate defenestration landed in a pile of manure and survived. This incident, however, contributed to the start of the 30-Year War. The Cutter Incident. Not long after Jonas Salk developed the first successful polio vaccine, the U.S. government contracted with labs across the country to mass produce the vaccine to inoculate every child in the country. One lab, Cutter Laboratories in Berkeley, California, however, accidentally produced about 120,000 doses of the vaccine that contained a live polio virus. Of the 120,000 youngsters who received the vaccine, 5 died, 113 became paralyzed, 56 developed a severe polio that impacted their central nervous system, and 40,000 kids developed a milder form of the disease. After this, parents were understandably hesitant to vaccinate their children. A knocker-upper was someone whose purpose was to wake people up during a time when alarm clocks were expensive and not very reliable. They earned about 6 pence a week using a pea shooter to shoot dried peas at the windows of sleeping workers in East London. 1930s, she would not leave window until she was sure that the worker had woken up. The Great Emu War, 1932. The strange and bizarre Great Emu War of 1932 pitted the Australian military against an elusive, clever, and dodgy foe, the population of emus. The large, flightless birds experienced a baby boom in recent years. There were so many emus in Western Australia that they were destroying the farm fields. The Australian military, armed soldiers with machine guns, were sent to eradicate them. The birds proved to be worthy adversaries. They were quick, tricky, and smart. They eluded the soldiers and made the Australian military look like fools. So who won the Great Emu War? I'll give you a hint. It wasn't the humans. In 1990, Malaysian strongman Ramzami, and I can't pronounce it without messing it up, so I'm not going to, used his hair to pull a 737 aircraft in Kuala Lumpur. He pulled it 56 feet, setting a new world record. His abilities were passed on to his daughter, who pulled a truck with her hair in 2002. I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out why this would be something people would try, but who knows. Which is the only country to sit within all hemispheres, all 4 hemispheres of the world? Monaco, Kiribati, Turkey, Russia. Kiribati is an island country in the Central Pacific Ocean. It is made up of 33 islands. Despite having a country of a population of 120,000 and a land mass of 811 square kilometers, there are almost 4,000 kilometers between the east and the west sides of the country. The nation comprises a single solitary island as well as 32 atolls, which are spread across 3 groups of islands. Due to its location, it is always the first nation in the world to usher in the new year. Wedding bands that were removed from the Holocaust victims prior to being executed in 1943. Each ring represents a destroyed family. Let's never forget that. And besides this, the first thing that the Nazis did was got all the guns. So they had nobody to be able to be against them. The Bristol Channel Tsunami of 1607. On January the 30th, 1607, the water levels in the Bristol Channel in the United Kingdom suddenly rose to an unfathomable level, more than 25 feet above sea level. Water breached earthen levees and flooded towns and villages along the coast of England and Wales. Homes, churches, and even entire villages were swept away. An estimated 2,000 people were killed. The flooding also drowned thousands of livestock, animals, and destroyed more than 2,000 square miles of farm fields. The event became known as the Bristol Channel Tsunami, although it is more likely that the flooding was caused by a storm surge. The tragic death of the father of the Greek tragedy, and Aeschylus is the way that it's pronounced. Often considered the father of the Greek tragedy, Aeschylus was a prolific playwright in ancient Greece. He penned an estimated 90 plays, although only 7 of them survived. In most of them, the main characters died in tragically ironic ways. The hallmark of the classic tragedy, it should be no surprise then that Achilles' death was bizarre. It was tragic and ironic too. In 458 BC, he was returning to his home in Sicily when, just outside of the city, he was killed when an eagle dropped a tortoise onto his head. Eagles and other birds of prey often drop their hard-shelled tortoises onto rocks to crack open their shells. The theory is that the not-so-eagle-eyed eagle mistook his bald head for a big, shiny boulder. Amo Koivunen meth-fueled World War II survival run in 1944. On March 18, 1944, Finnish soldier Amo became separated from his unit while fleeing a Soviet attack above the Arctic Circle. He was exhausted and freezing. Then he remembered the Pervitin in his pocket. The Finnish army gave out Pervitin, basically pure methamphetamine, as an energy booster. Only Amo didn't have just one dose, he had all 30 of them, enough for his whole unit. But Amo didn't realize that, so he took all 30 and then he started skiing fast. And he didn't stop for nearly 3 weeks. Fueled by the meth coursing through his system, he survived all that time alone in the Arctic without food or shelter. Much of it was blacked out blur, but he reemerged in the Finnish territory. He had covered more than 250 miles and weighed only 94 pounds. His heart rate, however, was still above 200 beats per minute. In 1959, a coffee maker was an optional extra in Volkswagen cars. You know, it's amazing you folks were never taught this stuff. This is really important. If you play music to a cheese wheel, the tunes will affect the flavor. Cheese wheels have the strongest flavor when they listen to hip-hop. In 2019, a study that played classical rock, electronic, and hip-hop to cheese wheels, the hip-hop wheel had the strongest flavor. I said, you just can't get this information anywhere. So just the lost nuclear bomb off of Georgia, 1958. During a nighttime training exercise, February 5, 1958, the U.S. Air Force F-86 fighter plane crashed midair with a B-47 bomber. That bomber was carrying a functional nuclear weapon. The crew of the damaged bomber jettisoned the nuclear bomb, fearing that it would detonate if it was crashed, which probably it would have. The nuclear bomb hit the water in Warsaw Sound off of Georgia's Tybee Island, and it is, by all accounts, still there. The Air Force searched for the functional nuclear bomb but it was never found. Oh, this is going to be a good one. What is the longest published word in the major dictionaries? Anti-disestablishmentarianism, I can say that one. supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I can say that one. And with help, I'm going to try to say this one. Pneumon ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconus, which is basically silicone. The longest word published in the major dictionary is that last word. This tongue twister of a word with a technical term used to describe a lung disease caused by the inhalation of a very fine silica dust found in volcanoes. It was coined by Everett Smith, the president of the National Puzzlers League, as a playful attempt to create the longest word in the English language. The word itself is a mouthful consisting of 45 letters. This is Jonas Salk in 1914 and 1995, who decided not to patent his 1995 polio vaccine so that it would be affordable for millions of people who couldn't afford it. As a result, he lost out on an estimated $7 billion. In 1947, the University of Pittsburgh recruited Jonas Salk, an expert influenza whose flu vaccine is still in use today, to develop a virus program at Pitt. For more than 7 years, his team worked tirelessly to develop an effective killed virus vaccine. The government approved the vaccine for the public use on April 12, 1955, an action that Newsweek called a summit moment in history. Oh, sorry about that. The year of 4 emperors, 69 A.D. The year 69 A.D. was one of chaos and uncertainty in ancient Rome. This period has accurately been called the year of the 4 emperors. There was a rapid succession of 4 emperors who all sat on the Roman throne, a bet for really short reigns. It started with Emperor Nero's death, which kicked off a real-life Game of Thrones. Galba took over as emperor, but then his rival Otho was not happy about this. Otho plotted to have Galba assassinated so he could take the throne. Otho ruled for a short time before Vitellius usurped him. Vitellius himself couldn't hold on to the throne for a very long time. A power general with proven leadership skills named Vespasian, fresh off his victories in battle, marched on to Rome and seized the throne, this time for keeps. Citrus growers often bundle their bunches of oranges in mesh bags, which you may have noticed are made of red plastic. It's no coincidence. Red bags against orange peels create an optical illusion that makes the fruit appear more vibrant, hued, and enticing. The trick works for other citruses like mandarins, clementines, tangerines, and even some grapefruit. Though not all, yellow citrus like lemons are often sold in yellow or green bags to create a similar color popping effect. The Sanxi earthquake. At an estimated 8.3 on the Richter scale, the Sanxi earthquake that struck China in 1556 may not have been the strongest one on record, but it is believed to be the deadliest. People living in that area, in that province, during that time lived in homes carved into the sides of mountains and reinforced with stones and bricks. When the earthquake struck, it triggered devastating landslides that crushed or buried people living in the region. The quake leveled mountains, altered the course of rivers, and produced 60-foot deep cracks and crevices in the earth. Sadly, more than 100,000 people were killed, roughly 6% of the province's total population. George Jeniset's assassination by an axe-wielding bear in 1639. Adrian Michael George Jeniset was a prominent political leader in Switzerland during the 30-Year War, who has recently been knighted by the monarchy as a thanks for his service to the country. To celebrate, Jeniset hosted a lavish party in the town of Chur, which coincidentally was holding a huge town carnival at the time. At his party was in full swing. The group of carnival folks in costumes knocked on the door. The group's leader, a man dressed as a bear, asked if they could join the party, and the group was allowed in. But the bear produced an axe and proceeded to hack Jeniset into pieces in front of his horrified guests in one of the strangest political assassinations. The bear's true identity is still unknown. The shortest serving president in the United States history, William Henry Harrison, delivered the longest inaugural speech. In 1841, Harrison spoke for a whopping 8,445 words during his inauguration speech. Despite the cold and rainy weather, unfortunately, he caught pneumonia and died just 32 days later. Regardless of the flag they were working under, nearly all sailors in the past shared a common enemy, scurvy. The disease caused by a vitamin C deficiency plagued sailors who were unable to regularly consume fresh fruits and vegetables while out at sea. The British Royal Navy began supplying its sailors with lemons and lime juice in 1795. Though not all countries picked up on this practice, during the War of 1812, skeptical American sailors nicknamed the British counterparts limeys to mock the practice, though the U.S. Navy eventually started doing it too. Pope Pius XI wrote erotica. In 1467, before he became Pope Pius XI on August 19th, the Pope, you can pronounce his name any way you want to, was a published author. One of his books is rather eyebrow-raising. In light of his future career choice, that book, The Tale of Two Lovers, is quite salacious and full of erotic imagery. The Tale of Two Lovers, which was the first publicized in 1467, is one of the earliest novels written in the epistolary format, as a series of letters between two lovers. Spoiler alert, things really start to heat up as the romance progresses. The average NFL player career is 3.3 years. While we think of NFL superstars like Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Frank Gore having amazingly long careers, most NFL players do not stay in the league for very long. The average NFL career lasts only 3.3 seasons, which is remarkably short. The longest NFL career position belonged to the kicker, who played an average of 4.87 seasons, while the running back has the shortest average with only 2.57 seasons under his belt. Taylor Swift reportedly boosts the NFL and the Chiefs brand by over $300 million this year, according to the Front Office Sports. Ben Franklin left $2,000 to the city of Boston and Philadelphia in his will to help young tradesmen, but they could not draw the balance for 200 years. In 1990, it was worth $6.5 million. The money has been used to fund scholarships, women's health, and help firefighters and disabled children. Okay, I think we're going to stop there and take a break, and we'll be back. Please join us. Thanks for joining us again. Once again, we're going to just sort of rehash the last slide. Ben Franklin left $2,000 to the cities of Boston and Philadelphia in his will to help young tradesmen, but they could not draw the balance for 200 years. In 1990, it was worth $6.5 million. The money has been used to fund scholarships, women's health, and help firefighters and disabled children. The Night the Sky Fell Down, 1833. The Leonid meteor shower occurs every November, but every 33 years the Earth passes through the comet's tail during this time, which gives the Leonid an extra boost. One of those years fell in the evening of November 12th and 13th of 1833. The exceptionally bright and prolific meteors filled the night sky. It struck terror in the hearts of people in North America. People across the continent were convinced the sky was falling and the Judgment Day was at hand. It's not hard to see why. An estimated 240,000 meteors fell during the 9-hour event, with as many as 100,000 per hour at its peak. People packed churches to pray for salvation. Even Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon religion, wrote that the meteors were a sign the imminent second coming of Christ. The St. Francis Dam failure in 1928. The St. Francis Dam in California, designed by William Mulholland, experienced a catastrophic failure on March 12th and 13th of 1928. The dam was constructed for the dual purpose of providing water and hydroelectric energy to the growing city of Los Angeles. But only after 2 years after it was completed, something went horribly wrong when the dam failed. A massive wall of water swept through the Santa Clara River Valley, killing more than 450 people. The St. Francis Dam disaster has been called one of the deadliest civil engineering failures in American history. The event led to changes in safety regulations, engineering practices, and inspection protocol for future infrastructure projects. Mayor Anton Cermak happily took a bullet for FDR in 1933. Chicago Mayor Anton Cermak had joined President Franklin Roosevelt for a rally in Miami on February 15, 1933. Afterward, the two men sat chatting in a convertible parked on the street. Giuseppe Zangara, a disgruntled, unemployed Italian immigrant with a history of mental illness, walked up and fired a gun at the president. Instead of assassinating the president, Zangara struck Cermak and 4 others. En route to the hospital, the dying Cermak told President Roosevelt, "I am glad it was me instead of you." That sentence was immortalized on Cermak's gravestone. For ancient Romans, having a bridal party was a legal means to an end. Roman law required 10 males witnesses to vouch for the couple, while a bride's female companions would prepare and escort her to the ceremony. In many cultures, bridesmaids acted as an incognito bodyguard for a bride, dressing similarly, preventing kidnappers and thieves from making off with the bride's dowry or the bride herself. You always wonder where these things come from, and this is, Sir Nicholas Winton rescues 669 Jewish children during the Holocaust in 1939. British businessman Sir Nicholas Winton, who was born to Jewish parents, hatched a brazen secret plan to rescue Jewish children from Czechoslovakia in 1939, as Europe teetered on the cusp of World War II. His Operation Kindertransport helped save the lives of 669 children, who were slated for the concentration camps. In addition to arranging for the youngsters to be transported to England, Winton, who worked to secure foster homes for them, he kept his activities secret from everyone, including his own wife. She learned about his heroic achievement years later when she discovered a scrapbook and other documents detailing his rescue mission. There is a name when you feel like your phone vibrated, but it didn't. We have all been there. You're sitting on the couch watching TV, and your phone vibrates to tell you that you received a text or a call or whatever. You check, but there are no notifications. Are you losing your mind? Actually, this occurrence is a lot more common than you think. Phantom vibration syndrome is when you feel your phone vibrating, even though it does not vibrate. Other names for it, the phenomena, include anxiety and phantom. It occurs when the brain perceives that you receive a text, even though no actual text comes through. Despite being dead for over a year, famous author Agatha Christie saved a baby's life in 1977. Her novel, The Pale Horse, described thallium poisoning so well that a nurse who had been reading it was able to diagnose a sick 1-year-old boy who had doctors stumped. The baby was immediately tested. They found traces of thallium. Doctors changed treatments, and her life had been saved by an old murder mystery novel. When Franklin Roosevelt started a foundation to fight polio, comedian Eddie Cantor came up with the March of Dimes, asking people to mail in dimes to the White House. They were soon overwhelmed with 2,680,000 dimes mailed to them, literally truckloads, mostly from children. These dimes went directly to research that resulted in the polio vaccine. This is why Roosevelt is on the U.S. dime. You share your birthday with 19 million people. On average, a person will share a birthday with 19 million other people with a population of over 7 billion. If you were born on the least common day, which we just had, the 29th of February, you would still share the same birthday with 18 million people. The United States soldiers paid tribute to the 8 million horses, donkeys, and mules that lost their lives during World War I in 1918. John Wilkes Booth's brother saved the life of Abraham Lincoln's son. It may seem off-kilter to conflate the name Booth and Lincoln for a story with a happy ending, but that's what happened during a near disaster at the crowded New Jersey train platform around the late 1863, when a student at Harvard, Robert Todd Lincoln, found himself pressed against a train that suddenly lurched forward and spun him onto the tracks before a quick reacting Good Samaritan hauled him to safety. Lincoln immediately recognized his savior as the famous actor Edward Booth, though it took a congratulatory letter from the mutual friend for Booth to realize he had rescued the President Abraham Lincoln's oldest son. Regardless of any goodwill between the two families soon vanished when Booth's pro-Confederate younger brother, John Wilkes Booth, fatally ambushed the president in April 1865. A U.S. passport offers visa-free access to over 80% of the world, making it a handy tool for anyone looking to explore the world. Once considered the most powerful travel document in the world, the U.S. passport has lost its appeal compared to other passports from around the world. However, the U.S. still scores pretty well in one department, travel freedom. The U.S. passport ranks 40th in the world as January 2024, according to Visa Guide Passport Index. This means that the U.S. citizen can travel visa-free to 148 countries in the world, down from 177 just 3 years ago. However, to enter the remaining countries, U.S. passport holders must apply for a visa beforehand. Napoleon's grandnephew created the forerunner of the FBI. Charles Joseph Bonaparte was an American lawyer and political activist for progressive and liberal causes. Originally from Baltimore, Maryland, he served in the cabinet of the 26th U.S. President, Theodore Roosevelt. He was a descendant of the House of Bonaparte. His grandfather was Jerome Bonaparte, brother of Emperor Napoleon. Bonaparte was the U.S. Secretary of the Navy and later the U.S. Attorney General. During his tenure as Attorney General, he created the Bureau of Investigation, now the FBI. Bonaparte was one of the founders and, for a time, the president of the National Municipal League. He was also a longtime activist for the rights of black residents of his native city of Baltimore. Leonardo da Vinci is one of the most famous names in history, but it isn't really the polymath's name. Born in 1452 in Vinci, near the Italian city of Florence, Leonardo was the illegitimate son of a wealthy notary, Ser Piero da Vinci, and a peasant woman named Catalina. Ser Piero acknowledged Leonardo as his son, and the genius became known as Leonardo di Ser Piero, meaning the son of Piero. Because he had been born out of wedlock, Leonardo was, thankfully for us, given freedom to explore his intellectual pursuits rather than be trained as a notary like his father, as was family custom at the time. When Leonardo became an apprentice in his teenage years, he tacked on the moniker Da Vinci, or from Vinci, to distinguish himself from the plethora of Leonardos in Florence and throughout Tuscany. Who wants to tell Dan Brown of the bad news? Once again, Dan Brown's more famous works were Inferno, Angels and Demons, and the Da Vinci Code. Facts about other countries. Although soccer is a very popular sport in Greenland, they can't join FIFA because their harsh weather conditions make it impossible to grow a grass field, one of the requirements for membership. The Canary Islands, an island nation off the northwest coast of Africa, got its name from canis, the word for dog. Early sailors landed on the island, found it overrun with wild dogs, and gave it its name. The bird species canary actually got its name from the island, not the other way around. And you know, Japan is made up of 6,552 islands. Fun facts about states. There are roughly 200 chickens for every person in Delaware. Alaska is the biggest state. It is 429 times larger than Rhode Island, the smallest state. However, Rhode Island has a higher population. The Florida Everglades is the only place on Earth where alligators and crocodiles live together in the wild. Montpelier, Vermont is the only state capital without a McDonald's. And over 40 buildings in New York City are so large that they have their own zip codes, including the Empire State Building. Fun facts about animals. Neither kangaroos or emus can walk backwards. Both animals are included on Australia's official crest to represent continuous progress of moving forward. A flock of hummingbirds can be referred to as a hover, a glitter, a bouquet, a tune, or a shimmer. A shrimp's heart is located inside its head. And male platypuses have spurs on the back of their feet that can release venom, making them one of the few poisonous mammals. Fun facts about holidays. It's a common tradition in Japan to eat KFC on Christmas. In order to ensure that they get fried chicken, over 3 million people a year pre-order their Christmas meals sometime months in advance. Real Christmas trees are actually better for the environment than fake ones. This is both due to the toxic materials needed to make the fake trees, as well as the fact that the Christmas tree farms serve as a habitat for wildlife. And since Hanukkah is the Hebrew word translated into English, there are no official correct spellings of it. Some spell it variants of, as you see, there are 4 different types. Fun facts about history. Ronald Reagan, in addition to being the U.S. president and a film star, he was also a lifeguard when he was younger and saved multiple people from drowning. The first face to appear on the U.S. dollar bill wasn't George Washington. It was Simon Chase, the Secretary of Treasury and the designer of the banknotes when the first $1 bill was released in 1862. And Charles de Gaulle, the former president of France, is in the Guinness Book of Records for having survived the most assassination attempts in the world. He survived over 30 of them before dying naturally at the age of 79. "90% of the world's population live in the northern hemisphere. 9 out of 10 people live in the northern hemisphere. In total, that means approximately 6.6 billion people out of a total population of 7.3 billion live above the equator. There is actually much more livable land in the northern hemisphere, with completely inhospitable Antarctica taking up a large portion of the southern hemisphere's landmass. While 90% of the population lives in the northern hemisphere, most of it is not very north. The majority of the world's population lives only 20 to 40 degrees north of the equator. There are 18 minutes of total action in a baseball game. Baseball is a game of standing. While you may not agree with that statement, the numbers do not lie. Studies found that roughly 90% of a given baseball game is spent standing. They also found that the total length of a baseball game, from start to finish, there is roughly 18 minutes of action. That means that per inning, there is only 2 minutes of action, with 1 minute going to each team batting. Where is the Lost Sea located? Tennessee, Arizona, Minnesota, or Michigan? The correct answer is in Tennessee. The Lost Sea is the country's largest underground lake, and it can be found in Sweetwater, Tennessee. In 1974, it was officially named a National Natural Landmark. The visible portion of the lake is about 800 feet long by 200 feet wide. Since most of the lake is underground and the full extent of the lake is still unknown, a 13-year-old Ben Sands discovered the lake in 1905. Due to its unique natural wonder, It is a huge tourist attraction where tourists usually tour the vast cave system near the lake. What is the brightest star in the night sky? Canopus, Arcturus, Rigel Centaurus, or Sirius? The answer is Sirius is the brightest star in the visible night sky. The name is fitting. Sirius is the Greek word for glowing, and that is exactly what the star looks like when it's doing from the Earth. The only thing in the night sky that is visible from the Earth that outshines Sirius is the full moon, and Sirius is actually brighter than the moon when it is less than full. The International Space Station is also quite bright and can rival the glow of Sirius. In 1967, war stopped for 2 days so both sides could watch Pele play soccer. One of the bloodiest wars in modern history, the Nigerian Civil War ran from July 6, 1967 until January of 1970. It only stopped for 2 days over its 3-year span, and that was so that Nigerians could watch the biggest soccer star of all time, Pele, play 2 exhibition matches against some local teams. Both sides of the conflict, the Nigerian government and the breakaway Republic of Biafra, agreed to a ceasefire so that it was safe for Pele to enter the country. Peanut butter can be converted into diamonds. Peanut butter, the delicious half-part component of the classic PB&J sandwich, can actually be turned into diamonds. Dan Frost of the Bayerisches Geo Institute in Germany discovered this in a bid to mimic the conditions deep inside the earth. By combining peanut butter with carbon dioxide and placing it under immense pressure, the process essentially extracted the oxygen from the carbon dioxide and left behind carbon, resulting in diamonds being formed. So the next time you eat peanut butter, think about how much money you could make by simply converting it into diamonds. Interesting facts about animals. And this, if you watched the news recently, this is in question right now. The world's oldest dog lived 29.5 years, while the medium-aged dog reaches between 10 to 15 years. One Australian cattle dog, Bluey, survived to the ripe old age of 29.5. Now, if you've been watching the news, they in fact have talked, the Guinness Book of Records have taken these names out of their book just last week because they can't find documentation that would actually support this by a reputable organization. The world's oldest cat, though, lived to 38 years, 3 days old. Cream Puff was the oldest cat to ever live, and this was according to the Guinness Book of Records. A tabby cat as the oldest cat to ever live. Now, this next part is going to be really interesting because we always learned in our history that every dog's year is worth 7. So see what they've come up with now. Researchers at the University of California, San Diego have even suggested a frankly complicated equation for more accurately converting your dog's age into human years. Say your dog is 10 years old. The natural log of 10 is roughly 2.3. Multiply that by 16 and you get a rough 37 years. Add 31 and your pooch is therefore 38 years in human years and eligible for a bus pass. So once again, that's very complicated, but once again, let's go over it. Say your dog is 10 years old. The natural log of 10 is roughly 2.3. Multiply that by 16 and you get roughly 37 years. Add 31 to that number, and your pooch is therefore 68 in human years. They can't make it easy. I like the old 7-year routine. When you are thinking you are watching real independent news coming from the media, think again.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities, the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false news
has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fakes aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 So when you're listening to the news, you realize that there's really only 6 major corporations that cover the news, and they're basically telling their people what they want you to hear. So pay attention to this next time when you're wondering if the news is slanted. What football team had the biggest scoring comeback in the history of the Super Bowl? Was it the Green Bay Packers, the Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, New England Patriots? And once again, the correct answer is the New England Patriots. New England Patriots are one of the most impressive and longest-lasting modern-day NFL dynasties in history. They have been to 9 Super Bowls since 2001 and won 6 of them, all with Tom Brady as their quarterback and Bill Belichick as their head coach. Despite all of their successes, New England is pretty accustomed to being behind and coming back to win. In 2014, the Patriots came back from down 24-14 to win 28-24, the largest comeback in Super Bowl history at that time. Then, in 2016, the Patriots came all the way back from being down 28-3 to the Atlanta Falcons to win the championship and complete the largest comeback in Super Bowl history. The Salem witch trials ended when the governor's own wife was accused of witchcraft. These infamous witch trials, born out of ignorance and misogyny, were a disgusting part of the colonial America. They were conducted by the Court of Ora and Terminal, established by the governor of Massachusetts, William Phillips. The trials were conducted by zealots whom accusation usually meant conviction, and condemned many defenseless, poor, and marginalized women and men to death. Phillips had enough when his own wife was accused of witchcraft, and he quickly moved to disband the court in the face of waning public support. Iowa's Caitlin Clark becomes Division I all-time score leader. This just happened yesterday. Iowa's Caitlin Clark became Division I all-time, beating Pete Maravich's, and let me go back to my thing here. She beat Pete Maravich's 54-year record of 3,667 points. And she beat that whenever she was doing a free throw. Now, the interesting part, she still has possibly 3 to 5 more games this year before she goes pro. So I would imagine she'll be putting that score out of reach for many people in the future. Special thanks for watching, and we'd like to thank these organizations for their inputs. Once again, looking forward to seeing you the next time we're talking things they usually don't teach you.